Book of Heaven, Volume 7. 14th to the 31st of October 1906. Page 41 to 47. October 14, 1906. Self-esteem poisons grace. The purgatory of a soul for having neglected communion. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself with baby Jesus, and he seemed to say to a priest, "Self-esteem poisons grace in you and in others." In fact, since by your office you must administer grace, if souls detect that what you say and do, you do in order to be esteemed, and it can easily be detected when this poison is present, grace does not enter alone, but together with the poison that you have. So, instead of rising again to life, they find death. Then he added, "It is necessary that you strip yourself of everything in order for you to be filled with the All, which is God. And by having the All within you, you will give the All to all those who will come to you. And in giving the All to others, you will find everything at your disposal, in such a way that no one will be able to deny you anything, not even esteem. Even more, from human you will have it divine, which befits the All who dwells in you." After this, I saw a soul from purgatory who, upon seeing us, hid and shunned us, and the blushing she felt was such that she was as though crushed. I was surprised that instead of running to the baby, she would run away. Jesus disappeared, and I drew near her asking the reason for it. She was so ashamed that she could not utter a word, but as I forced her, she told me, "Just justice of God, for having sealed upon my forehead confusion and such fear of his presence that I am forced to shun him. I act against my own will, because while I am consumed with yearning for him, another pain inundates me, and I shun him. Oh, God, to see him, and to shun him, these are mortal and unutterable pains. However, I have deserved these pains, distinct from those of other souls, because in conducting a devout life, many times I made abuse by not receiving communion because of trifles, temptations, coldnesses, fears, and sometimes even in order to be able to bring reasons to my confessor and let him hear that I was not receiving communion. Souls hold all this as nothing, but God judges it most severely, giving it pains which surpass the other pains, because these are defects more directed to love. In addition to all this, Jesus Christ in the most blessed sacrament burns with love and with the desire to give himself to souls. He feels himself dying continuously with love, and when the soul can draw near him to receive it, but does not, or even more, she remains there indifferent with many useless pretexts. The affront and the displeasure he receives are such that he feels restless, burning, and cannot give vent to his flames. He feels as though suffocated by his own love, finding no one with whom to share it, and almost gone mad. He keeps repeating, "The excesses of my love are neglected, even more, they are forgotten. Even the ones who call themselves my spouses have no yearning to receive me and to let me pour myself out with them at least. Ah, in nothing am I requited. Oh! 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 I am not loved. I am not loved." And so, to have me purged of this defect, the Lord has made me share in the pain which he suffers when souls do not receive him. It is a pain, it is a sorrow, it is a fire, such that it can be said that the very fire of purgatory, compared to it, is nothing. After this, I found myself inside myself, all stupefied, thinking about the pain of that soul, while here with us neglecting communion is really held as nothing. October 16, 1906. How each good is a distinct melody in heaven. Having neglected to write what follows, obedience commanded me to do it. I seemed to be outside of myself, and it seemed that there was a special feast in heaven, and I was invited to this feast. It seemed I was singing with the very blessed, because, up there is no need to learn, but one feels as though an infusion in one's interior, and whatever the others sing or do, one is able to do as well. Now, it seemed to me that each blessed is a key, that is, a melody himself, but all are in harmony among themselves, though each one is different from the other. One sings the notes of praise, one the notes of glory, one of thanksgiving, one of blessings, but all these notes reunite into one single note, and this note is love. It seems that one single voice reunites all those voices and ends with the word, love. This cry, love, is such a sweet and strong resounding that all other voices remain as though extinguished in this canticle, love. It seemed that all the blessed were made ecstatic, drowsy, awake, inebriated by this cry or chant. Love, high, harmonious, beautiful, which deafened the whole of heaven. They participated, one could say, in one more paradise. But who were the fortunate ones who cried out more loudly, who made this note, love, resound in everything, and who brought great happiness into heaven itself? They were the ones who had loved the Lord more when they lived on earth. Ah, they were not the ones who had done great things, penances, miracles. Ah, no, never. Love alone is what surpasses everything, and leaves everything behind. So, it is one who loves much, not one who does much, that will be more pleasing to the Lord. It seems I am speaking nonsense, but what can I do? It is obedience's fault. Who doesn't know that the things from up there cannot be spoken down here? So, in order not to speak more nonsense, I stop here. October 18, 1906. The works which most please Jesus are the hidden works. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus just barely came and told me, "My daughter, the works which I like the most are the hidden works because, free from any human spirit, they contain such preciousness within themselves, that I keep them as the choicest inside my heart. So much so, that in comparing 1,000 external and public works with one internal and hidden work, the 1,000 external ones remain below the single internal work, because in the external works the human spirit always takes its part." October 20, 1906. Jesus laments over the state of his ministers. As I was in my usual state, I found myself inside a church in which there were many people attending sacred services. In the meantime, it seemed that by the authority of the government other people were entering to profane this holy place. Some were jumping, some were using violence, and some were laying hands, sacrilegiously, on the most holy sacrament and on the priests. On seeing this, I cried and prayed, saying to the Lord, "Do not permit that they arrive at this, profaning your sacred temples, because who knows how many terrible chastisements you would unload upon your creatures because of these horrendous sins." While I was saying this, he told me, "My daughter, the cause of all these enormous crimes, because one sin is the cause and chastisement of making others fall into more sins, have been the sins of priests. They have been the first to profane my holy temple hiddenly with sacrilegious masses, and by mixing impure acts in the administration of the sacraments. And under the appearance of holy things, they have reached the point of profaning not only my temples of stone, but of profaning and using violence on my living temples, which are the souls, and of profaning my very body. The secular have somehow perceived all this, and not seeing in them the light necessary for their journey, or rather, they have found nothing but darkness, they have been left so clouded as to lose the beautiful light of faith. And without light, it is no wonder that they reach such grave excesses. Therefore, pray for priests, that they may be light for the peoples, so that, as the light arises again, the secular may acquire life and may see the errors they commit. And by seeing them, they will feel disgusted to commit these grave excesses, which will be the cause of grave chastisements." October 23, 1906. How in these times everything is effeminate. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus came for a little, and all oppressed and afflicted he wanted to pour his bitternesses into me. Then he told me, "My daughter, the bitternesses that creatures give me are such that I cannot contain them. This is why I wanted to share them with you. In these times everything is effeminate. Priests themselves seem to have lost the masculine characteristic and acquired the feminine characteristic. So, only rarely can a masculine priest be found, the rest, all effeminate. Ah, in what a deplorable state poor humanity is." Having said this, he disappeared. I myself do not comprehend the meaning of this, but obedience wanted me to write it. October 25, 1906. For one who receives it, grace is light. For one who does not, it is fire. Continuing in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and there seemed to be people who wanted to crucify me. While they were laying me on the cross, I saw our Lord within me, and as I laid myself, he laid himself too. So, in my hands there were his hands, and the nail was piercing my hands and his. Whatever I suffered, he would suffer too. The pain that those nails without a point gave us was such that I felt I was dying. But, how sweet to die together with Jesus. I only feared that I would not die. Now, as they were about to crucify my feet, Jesus escaped me from within, and was now in front of me. My sufferings took as though shapes of light, and placed themselves before the Lord as though in active adoration. After this, he told me, "My daughter, for one who receives it, grace is light, it is way, it is nourishment, it is strength, it is relief. But for one who does not receive it, in addition to the fact that he finds no light and feels the ground missing under his feet, remaining on an empty stomach and without strength, grace converts into fire and chastisement." While he was saying this, a torrent of light came out of his hand, which descended upon the creatures. This light remained light for some, and for some it turned into fire. October 28, 1906. Everything which is light comes from God. Having received communion, I found myself within a great light. It was Jesus himself, and he said to me, "My daughter, everything which is light is all mine, not of the creature." It happens as to a person who is invested by the rays of the sun. If he wanted to attribute the light which he enjoys to himself, he would be foolish and brainless. However, there is this, that person, instead of enjoying the light of the sun, could say, "I want to walk in the shade," and withdraw from the light. While the soul, in withdrawing from my light, becomes darkness, and darkness can produce nothing but evil. October 31, 1906. How for each suffering, the soul acquires one more kingdom within herself. Continuing in my usual state, blessed Jesus came in passing, and told me only this: "My daughter, each suffering that the soul suffers is one more dominion that she acquires over herself." In fact, patience in suffering is regime, and by ruling herself, the more she suffers, the more dominion she acquires. She does nothing but expand and enlarge her kingdom of heaven, acquiring immense riches for eternal life. So, for each additional pain you suffer, consider that you acquire one more kingdom in your soul, a kingdom of grace, which corresponds to a kingdom of virtue and of glory.